Hi, welcome to Awakening Soul Truth. I'm Robbie Short. This is Allison Ledbetter. I'm a yogi. She's a medium. We're both Reiki masters and meditation teachers. And today we're going to talk about a harder subject.
Really hard. But we want to face it together. And so we're bringing it up together.
As you know, more and more awareness has been coming forth regarding sex trafficking, child trafficking.
The sexual conquest over children.
And you said it perfectly one day when we were having the discussion that one of the reasons children are fed off of is because they have so much light.
Yes. And I think adults get separated from their truth and their light, and they crave it, and they don't actually go internally to connect to God. This is my deepest belief on why we rape children. And we're going to say it that bluntly. Today we're talking about the rape of children and the sick behavior that's happening in our culture worldwide and really profoundly. And so my belief is that we don't connect to source, and we are looking for it because we need source energy. We're actually built to be designed and connected to God. And for whatever reason, we don't see that as the real connection. We've had religion and all these things step in the way and say, hey, you don't get to really connect to God. You're not good enough. So we have to find source, and we end up raping the brightest light we can find.
And we're saying we because we are talking about the collective humanity. And collectively, we're all ascending and having these realizations and having an opportunity to come together to really look at it and to try to fix it, to heal it.
Together.
Yeah.
We need to heal this together.
If we want to say that we're all one, right? That's what the yogis think, and a lot of spiritual lineages also believe in the interconnectedness of all of life. I was even talking about sacred symbols this week in class, talking about the flower of life. There's also a sacred symbol called the seed of life. And these symbols go back to ancient Egypt. They go back to ancient Asia. They go back to Roman times. And yet we're still looking at these symbols today. So even science is showing everything is interconnected energetically. Mm-hmm. So we have to look at this as a worldly problem.
If we're going to heal it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. We're all connected to it. If we like it or not. We can't be like, oh, they rape. So the reason we can also say that we're all connected is because it's happening right in front of your face. I think the movie that you saw,
The
Sound of Freedom, has really ignited this truth everywhere. Yay. Thank God.
Well, a lot of the liberal media is coming out against the movie and saying a lot of horrific things, saying it was coming out for this or that reason. But I promise you, if you just watch the movie, you're going to actually see for yourself. It's not meant to be political in nature.
Of course not.
It is really about a person's true life story that happened, and they're just bringing the awareness to it. It's really based mainly in South America, but as we know, Americans, unfortunately, are the highest consumers of trafficking. So even though the movie's based in South America, it's really bringing to awareness the fact that this is a worldwide problem.
Absolutely.
And this is a real issue in the United States of America, which is so unfortunate and quite repulsive.
It is repulsive. We're allowed to say that word. It does make us sick to our stomach. And we talked a long time about how we were going to present this, because I can feel rage about this. And Robbie kept saying to me, we can't have that rage. And she's right. And I really sat down and looked at that anger and have really actually seen this as a place where I've needed healing. And to say we collectively need to heal this.
I feel like if we're, we always talk about the emotions falling under two categories, fear or love.
Yeah.
And we keep wanting to lean towards love and light because that's what we want to be dominant here on this planet.
Yeah.
And if we want it to be dominant here, then it has to first begin within, which is why we're trying to come from a loving, compassionate place with this subject matter. I told you, it was within this past year, I was thinking about the subject matter on the way from work, driving home, and I don't know, I get these like epiphanies when I'm driving, and I was rolling up to a red light to stop, and I had this overwhelming feeling of compassion come over me towards the people who are the pedophiles or the perpetrators of this disease that is rampant, because I started feeling compassion because a lots of times it's the people who are hurting because it was done to them that are not strong enough, not continue the cycle. And then the cycle continues. And when you know that that could be a root cause of it, you can't help not to feel compassionate because they were just an innocent child.
When they were hurt.
When they were hurt and when this was imposed upon them. And then you sent me a clip from, I believe, 60 Minutes that was a scientist who'd been studying the brain activity of pedophiles and had discovered that the wiring of the brain is not the same as people who are not pedophiles. And he was saying that because the wiring is different, if you were to get a crush, like, say, this doesn't make it right, by the way, I'm just stating some facts. If you're like 6 or 8 years old and you're developing like a little crush at school, he was saying, you know, most people, when they're continuing to age and mature and get older, their crushes continue at their proper age level.
Yes.
But for these people who don't have the proper wiring, they actually stay stuck in that earlier
they don't evolve.
Age limit. Yeah. And they don't evolve beyond that.
Well, and let's talk about...
And that they're more born with it.
Well, and I think they're not evolving because of trauma in their own life. I mean, you can look
Very important.
Right. So you can have science say to you, hey, their brains aren't evolving. Mm-hmm. And I'm saying from a spiritual place, they're also not evolving. They're not moving into the place
Makes perfect sense.
Right. And there's also, so there's pedophiles and then there's people that just rape and have conquest of other people. And so I feel like we're talking about a much larger, more pervasive group than just pedophiles.
Yeah.
I feel like there is consumers of sexual energy that is not okay. And why did we, as a culture, why have we glorified sex so much? And I'm going to get really, really clear. I deal with a lot of people that have been sexually hurt. I heal them very, very deeply. And I'm going to tell you straight up, women, those women that didn't protect their daughters from their spouses, from their whatever it is, you are just as much a fault here
than the men who did
the men who did it. And so that's why we're saying collectively own this. Please, we have to stop it. And so that means you've got to call it out. I don't give a shit if you think you can't leave your husband because you won't be money or broke. You will be supported. People need to walk away from the abuse. We have to not let the abusers win anymore. Like, seriously, that's so sick. Walk away. Find your power, find your strength in your own heart, and walk the fuck away.
Well, we don't know, you know.
I know. I get really agitated. I'm like, but you can't let the abusers win all the time. We've given them our power.
But let's just, I'm not going to get all into the psychology of this.
We gave them our power, though.
No, I agree with you. I know.
Take back.
But I think the psychology with a lot of these women, especially from the past, who are maybe different generations than we are,
they were definitely forced down and abused.
Women's voices have been oppressed for a long, long time.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of women get brainwashed, And I think a lot of women that are in these intimate relationships may not believe the child if they come to them, because we have to remember they're in love with the man who created this child with them.
Right.
And so, I don't know. I think there's a lot of different layers of the psychology. I'm not defending the women because I agree with you.
So many layers. But at the end of the day, finding our voice collectively, finding the individual women, it's on the table now. This movie put sexual abuse on the table.
Well, not only that, it's the Me Too movement. We cannot discount the Me Too movement getting a lot of this out, because, okay, I was just talking about Sinead O'Connor's death this past week, because if you remember when she came out and was, creating these hits and was being asked to perform, there was one performance she did, and the cameras are on her, and she's singing a Bob Marley song, and she holds up a picture of the Pope, and she rips it to shreds and throws it at the camera, and she literally got booed off the stage. And she was probably one of the first kind of artists, I guess, that were famous people that was really canceled by society. And she was fine with it because she didn't necessarily want to be this big pop star. But she was trying to call out the Catholic Church, specifically the Irish Catholic Church, because she's Irish. And during that time frame, a lot of information was coming out regarding the sexual abuse of children from the clergy that had been happening in that nation. And she herself had been abused by her own mother. And that picture was also significant because that picture used to hang in her mother's house. So there were two reasons for her doing that. One was to bring awareness to the Pope, to the Catholic Church, for people to realize this was a problem.
Yeah.
A big problem. And then on top of that, it was a personal thing for her because the picture was taken from her mother's home and her mother was her abuser. And so it was also about mental health for her. And here she is now passed, and this story is being brought up, and I think for good reason.
Good timing, because
very good timing.
The clergy is still not being held accountable for all their sexual abuse. And they rape profoundly. They have institutionalized rape of children.
Yeah,
institutionalize it. And I'm not saying this. There's statistics. You just sent me the one in Portugal.
Yes.
The Portugal, and the Pope actually is there right now. He was there yesterday.
Portugal came up, I think, with a study, and there were thousands of children.
5,000.
That had been abused. And that's only the ones that are speaking up.
Right.
We don't really know the impact of it.
Same thing happened.
But they were
France.
having a World Youth Day, and the Pope went down to Portugal amongst these allegations to, represent, I guess, the youth. And I don't know if he was going to talk about...
They went behind closed doors, and that meeting happened yesterday, and I don't know what the results were. But he said he was going to address the issue behind closed doors. And that's the very least he could do if he really was a man of God.
I feel like if it's a public issue and we all know about it, then why be behind closed doors?
Right. And he really needs to actually put the people in jail that have raped children. He should demand that. He should clean house.
And you can look up. I mean, it's not Portugal. It's
France.
It's the United States.
It's
everywhere. South America. It's Spain. It's Italy. It's everywhere.
So, since it's everywhere, it means that we're all tied to it and it's in front of our face.
And it is a we problem.
It is a we problem. So if you see something, like, what airport is it in Atlanta? If you see human trafficking, say something.
Well, actually, they're now training flight crews and flight attendants to be on the lookout for looking. I wish they had done that. I was a flight attendant for 12 and a half years. And I wish I had had that training when I was a flight attendant, because there were times where I was flying into Asia where it was sick. I mean, there were older white men in their 70s with like 18-year-old girls. And I'm guessing 18 because they're all made up.
Right.
And I remember thinking, what's going on here? And not having anybody to report to, not knowing how to check in with these girls to see if they were okay, because honestly, they were unapproachable. They seemed, looking back on it, it makes me sad because
So sorry.
we could have done something then. But at least they're doing something now.
Right.
Things are being reported. In fact, there was a news story where a man had been reported, and it really was his daughter, but the flight attendant was unsure. And you know what? I'm okay with the flight attendant reporting it, even if they were unsure, because at least there had to be something
hurting inside of her
to make them have a red flag.
Yeah, and so what this whole idea,
and let's not forget,
this
fathers and grandfathers and uncles,
they're the perpetrators,
are a lot of times the perpetrators.
So yeah, I was trying to say, like, this is very true. These perpetrators are happening within our own family.
Mm-hmm.
And we need to get that stopped. Like, there's no acceptance of this.
Yeah, and that's another thing the Sound of Freedom doesn't cover. The Sound of Freedom is covering the cartel and how they're selling children to make money.
Oh my God.
It's not really talking about the problem of children not being protected in their own homes.
Right. You just mentioned the cartels. Not trying to be political here, but down at the border, the cartels are doing human trafficking like there's nobody's business. And
I don't think you're being political. This is a fact.
It is so disgusting.
If you take the politics out of it and look at the facts, the sheer facts, that there are thousands of children
that
missing,
are going missing.
And not only that, thousands of children that are put into foster care system who are abused in the foster care system.
And there's actually, apparently, the holding cells of them, these cages of children. So the inhumane part is really real for the children. So they're not able to monitor this. They're
discovering that the children are not only are missing or being put in foster care to be abused, but they're also being taken by people who are putting them into the workforce. And so we actually have children that are being discovered, and I've seen article after article just in the Southeast of children that have been found in factories and in fast food places that are too young to be working. Yeah. And lots of times they're having to work to pay back the cartel who got them here to begin with.
That's happening for the women too.
If they're not paying the cartel back, then their families are being threatened at home. It's a wide, rampant problem.
Good news is we're hearing about it.
Yes.
The good news is
awareness is the first step. And when you have the awareness and the knowledge about it, that's the time you can take steps to create some sort of change.
And so you can feel it inside of you and say, this is hard. This is something I would like to stop.
Okay, so I have to bring this up since this is our subject matter today. I've had 2 women in the last month that are, I would say I'm about to turn 50. I would say they're in their 60s. It's hard for me to tell age these days,
right?
But I think they're a decade beyond me.
Right.
And they both opened up to me with their parents being in their 80s or 90s and telling me that they are now caring for their abusers. Their abusers were their stepdads, or they're caring for their mother who allowed the abuse to happen.
Yeah.
And they're doing this for the love of their mother. They're doing this from their own state of compassion towards themselves. But can you imagine how hard this is? And one of the ladies shared with me that it was through COVID and through the Zoom meetings that she discovered other women were in a similar situation caring for elderly. And she decided to speak her truth and talk about the true nature of what she was dealing with. How brave of her, by the way.
Right, right.
And she discovered 4 or 5 women in her workplace were also caring for their abusers.
That's so hard.
Like, why isn't this being talked about? This is...
Yeah. So
this was happening. This has been happening. This is not a new issue. But I have a feeling it's either getting worse or the awareness is making it bigger. Because I saw this BBC interview with a young girl whose grandfather was her abuser, and she was from Wales. And she came on BBC to talk about it because she doesn't want basically a lot of women feel obviously a lot of shame or blame or guilt. And so they don't want to show their face. They don't want to talk about it. They want to be more anonymous. And they said, why aren't you being anonymous about this? And she says, because there needs to be a face to it. There needs to be more conversations happening. Yeah. And then BBC noticed within the statistics, just within the last couple years, people coming forward about sexual abuse as a child, and this is just Wales. Wales is not that big. A 56% increase in people reporting this. So the awareness is definitely bringing it out to the public eye.
So we have to talk about how to heal this. And when you mentioned that these women were having compassion and you first told me this story, I was like, why would you ever support your abuser, right? This is where my anger came up in the discussion. And what you made very clear was that they were having compassion for themselves, that they were really doing great care at loving themselves to be able to be in this situation. It's really important for us to draw boundaries and not let the abuser have the power anymore. And what that looks like is the internal healing of, I'm valuable. This was wrong. I can heal myself. I am releasing you from my body. To say that, to be empowered with being abused, is to say, I am releasing your energy from my body. I am taking back my body. I always am telling women or men, I've had a few men that have been raped, to take that person they were, to envision themselves at that time and literally hug them, bring them in. Don't let anything stop it, and hug it to the point where all those messages are coming up and being nasty, like you deserve this, or all the words you may have heard that kept you down and kept your energy stuck there. The key is to unstick your energy from there and to keep loving yourself. I love this. Me. I love me. I'm so important. I have compassion for myself. God has compassion for me.
Or they're told, this is our secret.
Right.
You can't tell anyone.
Tell everyone.
If you tell someone, I'm going to hurt who you love.
Yeah.
This needs to all come out.
Yeah. And the people that hopefully a few abusers are seeing this show, we hope that you have compassion for yourself and connect inward also. And you need to stop the behavior, like immediately. And it means to stop sexualizing women. Stop sexualizing men.
Or boys and girls.
Yeah, like stop doing that in your brain. You have to seek help. You've got to figure out a different way to connect to life. And typically that's, you need to reconnect to God, the divine. You need to connect to nature. Those two anchors and pillars in life can help you heal.
I think part of the sickness though is, because you hear this in like, say, tantric yoga where it's like worshiping the body and looking at your partner as being your god or goddess. And when you finally get climactic and you finally have the orgasm, it creates the state of union. It creates that connection with the divine. And I feel like in a sick way, that is their way of connecting, even though they may not realize that's their way of connecting.
Off of the light.
Yes.
So yes. That's exactly what's happening energetically. They're wanting the light of that other being because they don't know how to connect to it.
Got it. Got it.
So to really face it and say, I've got to connect to God's love. And let's be clear, and this is going to be hard for some of the people that get really angry. If you are an abuser, you are allowed to evolve and heal yourself. And I don't think God is going to damn you to hell. I think that conception of you need to go to hell or pushes the issue out even further. So God's love, or the love of the divine, is available. You have to grow into it. You've got to connect to it. I'm going to use the word salvation, even though I think that word's really misused by most religions. Love is your salvation. To love and have compassion for yourself and to seek the true divine connection. Robbie taught me a lot. I don't get to be angry anymore about this issue. I can be aware. We can all be aware. And anger is anger for the people that have been raped is part of the phases of healing. We're not telling you not to be angry.
Yeah, to be angry is appropriate response.
Right, it is. And we're not saying don't be angry. You just have to evolve from that.
Yes. I mean, don't stay stuck in the anger.
Yeah.
Because that doesn't get you anywhere either. And it's not going to help the situation if everybody's just pissed off.
Right.
I mean, that's how wars get started.
Just take back your energy. Take back your power. And literally you have to say, I'm taking my power back. It's mine. You need to fuck off. You could say it gently.
Or not.
Right. But it's too, I'm taking my power back. I own you. I love you. I'm going to stand by you. Or myself. I'm going to stand by myself. I'm going to be the advocate now. The advocate that you never had.
You know, right before I turned 40, and 2 women from my inner circle came to me, and they were about my age, so we were all about to turn 40. 2 of them came to me saying that they had been molested by uncles when they were younger. And it was all resurfacing. But while it was resurfacing, they were recognizing their addictions and some of the things that they had dealt with, like even abortion,
cover up the pain.
Was covering up their pain, trying to keep the secret hidden, not wanting it to be out, not wanting to disrupt the family,
not wanting
dynamics.
To feel that internally too.
Yeah,
the family dynamics.
Not wanting to interrupt the family dynamics. And it was harsh. It was really harsh, and they both dealt with it different ways, and one unfortunately died soon after that. So I'm just wondering, like, is this something that women suppress so much? And I think
Absolutely.
Men are even worse with this.
Right.
Because we don't have as many men coming out with the sexual abuse as women, but yet they're abused.
Yeah, we're finding out that there's many young boys abused. Many. That seems to be happening in locker rooms by the clergy. But you make an incredible point, and that is we suppress it because we don't want to disrupt. Some of your family might reject it because they can't deal with the awakening. They don't know how to take ownership of their part of it. And that happens for a lot of people now when they say to their moms, why didn't you protect me? Why didn't you believe me? And the parent still denies that it happens, even though the evidence is so apparent. They don't want to become conscious, right? They can't deal with the consciousness part of it.
And one of these girls was telling me her uncle would do it in front of everybody. They didn't realize it was going on, but he always wanted her to sit on his lap at the table.
Yeah.
And they're all around the table, and he's doing things under the table. So he was actually doing it in clear sight in front of them.
God.
I'm sorry.
Ugh.
I'm sorry.
Sorry. That's just rough.
It is rough. So for her, and I don't know if she told her I still don't know, and she passed away, so I don't know if she ever revealed to her family
Well, probably.
This is what happened.
So, unfortunately, sometimes when you keep secrets like that, you let it kill you.
And I wish more men would come out to talk about the subject, because I think the divine feminine in the men need to turn on and be healed too.
Absolutely.
It's as we talk about divine feminine, it's not just about women, it's the divine feminine in both male and female.
I think men are coming out, and we applaud you. Continue to come out, because a man saying to another man, this isn't okay, is what we really need. We really need this not to be women against men. We need men coming out and saying...
We need men and women to come out against this sickness.
Yeah. And to really say everybody has the right of their sovereignty. Everyone has the right to grow up peacefully, protected, loved. One thing I think that really is shattering is, because it's a parent figure, it destroys the relationship of being supported. And then I think these women and men that have been raped don't know how to receive support, and they don't think that's going to happen for them. Be really clear that you can say, I am supported by light and love, and things will start to turn. Like when you have a parent figure take your light and try to destroy you, you can even disconnect from God, because sometimes as humanity we think of God as a parent figure. The solution actually is love and support, and that definition that you've received is a false definition. You can say, I am releasing that version of love. I am releasing love being abusive. Those are powerful, powerful affirmations. I'm releasing my abuser, and I'm releasing that definition of love is abuse. You can redefine love. You can say, I'm supported by the divine, and have a miracle happen of being supported. You have to reconnect to that. That is your healing path.
And I think part of the loving path is to be accepting and forgiving. And it doesn't mean you condone it. It doesn't mean you're condoning the act or condoning what they did or condoning your pain. Yeah. But the awareness, the acceptance, the loving forgiveness, more than anything towards yourself. Yeah. Because you...
Self-compassion.
Mm-hmm. People freeze in these, I was talking to a girlfriend the other day, and she was mentioning how she wished, she was talking about getting this book for her children, and it's talking about sexuality and boundaries. Her kids are 8 and 10, and she's starting to have the conversation. And she was saying, I wish I had had these conversations with an adult, because when I became a teenager, she goes, I didn't know how to set boundaries, and I just would let the boy do this or that to me. And
the cycle gets repeated because they don't have boundaries.
But she said that she would freeze. Yeah. She goes, basically I would freeze, and then they would do what they wanted. And that is I think a piece of the conversation we need to start having is the whole nervous system response, the stressful response. We fight back. Yeah. We flee and run, or we freeze. Yeah. And there's no shame in that, because it's a natural physiological response when we're under stress.
I think that if you're evolving, your first reaction is, when you're a child, you're freezing because you don't know what to do. Next, you start running when you're later. And now, as adults, you need to fight for your life to get it back.
I've actually had all 3 things happen with me. Yeah. When I've been assaulted, different times where I was assaulted or touched willingly.
Without permission.
Without permission. I mean, there were a couple times where I ran from the scene. There were a couple times where I completely froze. Yeah. And there was another time where I fought back. And you know what? All of those happened under the age of 21. From the time of my youth to 21, and I haven't had the experience since.
Right.
And isn't that interesting? I was so much younger, which evidently is the norm when this happens.
Culturally, we need to put an end to over-sexualizing everything. That's enough. You can't sexualize children. That's got to stop. we have the right to our sovereignty. Each individual has the right to their sovereignty. And if I have my way, we all have the right to connect to love and be taught that at a very young age. Internal love, not this disgusting version of love.
Mm-hmm.
All right, we love you. We hope you have the strength to become aware, conscious, call it out, find your voice, get help, trust the divine.
It keeps coming out. It keeps getting revealed. It's time to have conversations about it so that we can have that compassion and love and forgiveness and all the things in the heart, but we're also using our minds and the intellect, again, this astrological thing that's occurring, so that we can have creative solutions, have this healing so that it doesn't continue to happen.
Yeah, we can't move.
It's time to nip it in the bud.
We can't move together as a collective with this huge, huge, disproportionate situation. We're healing the collective. Thank you for joining us today. We love you.